Let's move over to Manchester City, keeping it related to Newcastle, though. Obviously, Paul, we saw Pep sign a 1-year extension with another year option, so it seems like he's staying, which is bad news for the rest of the Premier League, obviously. Bruno Guimaraes kind of popped back up on the radar with this news of Pep signing an extension. Could you see him finally making that move to Manchester City? It feels like every year we're expecting them to pay that release clause.
Well, they're keeping it close to the chest at the moment, Manchester City, aren't they? We had no official announcement. That's what we're led to believe. But with the Pep extending his contract, but no official word and no word from Pep. Maybe we'll find out more in his Friday press conference, because I'm sure he'll get asked about it. But it's clever by Manchester City. The press around Manchester City, the current form's not been great, and it's quite ironic. In this week last year, Pep signed his year extension, so this must be around the time that they have the negotiations. Bruno is a type of player that would fit that mould, the Rodri mould. I mean, we work in the media, I work in the press a lot. And we use stats, and you dress any point you want to make up with stats, and you can make any type of stat look what you want to enhance your own point, actually, and then you can flip it and make it relevant to something else. But the stat with and without Rodri, you can't dress up. The points won with him and the points won without him, you can't dress that stat up. Now, you look at the squad that Manchester City have got, they should be able to cope without him. Kovacic has been playing in there. They've got Gundogan who can play in there. John Stones is coming back from injury, he can play in there. The inverted fullback Rico Lewis, he can play in there. Is there a huge call for him to rush to the market to get another defensive midfielder? Arguably not, because of the quality he's got, but Guimaraes does fit that mould. But again, we're talking about the richest club in the world looking to trade or possibly offload one of their best players. Why would they do that? Why would they strengthen Manchester City?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, with Rodri coming back, most likely healthy next season, where does Bruno...
For me, Bruno is Newcastle's most important player, so like Paul says, I can't see them looking to cash in on him. I think if they had to sell some players to meet FFP and PSR, I think they would look at other members of the squad before Bruno Guimaraes. He's club captain now there as well, after the speculation over his future in the summer when he had that £100 million release clause which expired, and obviously that's now been taken out of his contract. So yeah, for me, Eddie Howe, he knows how important Bruno Guimaraes is to his team, and it does seem, although Bruno has admitted that he and Pep praised each other's work in a conversation, he came out and said he's content at Newcastle, he's happy to be an idol to the club's fans. So I think there'll be massive uproar from that Newcastle fan base if they were to sell Bruno Guimaraes, and I fully expect him to stay at Newcastle for the foreseeable future.
And Pete, Maxi Araujo, a Sporting Lisbon player, obviously brought to Sporting by Hugo Viana, the new football director at Manchester City, scored against Manchester City in the Champions League just a couple of weeks ago. Could he be a potential fit at City in the future? Kind of an attacking midfield winger type. Feels like he could fit kind of as a De Bruyne replacement. He could fit out on the wing. Do you see that move potentially coming?
Well, I'm sure he put himself on City's radar when he scored against them in the Champions League recently in that 4-1 win for Sporting. Yeah, he's a 24-year-old, only arrived at Sporting in the last summer transfer window as well for around £13.6 million, but he's definitely making a reputation for himself for club and country now. He's a full international for Uruguay. Like City and all the big clubs across Europe, I'm sure they're doing their homework on a number of players who are performing well, and Araujo is definitely one of those. I think it might be a bit too early for him maybe to making that step up to the Premier League, but he's a versatile player, as you mentioned, can play left back or he can play anywhere down the left flank as well. I'm sure Man City, if they do need to strengthen that position, he might be on their radar, but I don't think it's a priority position for City right now as well. They've got so many options down that left. They've got Jack Grealish, they've got Jeremy Doku as well, so it's not like a priority position for City. I think a left back would be a key position for Pep Guardiola to sort out, if not this January, come next summer, because that has been a problem position for City in recent seasons, and they've had to play Nathan Ake out there a lot of the time as well. But yeah, I'm sure Araujo, if he continues to progress like he is at Sporting Lisbon, it'll be more than just Manchester City who are keeping track of his progress.
Listen, would we be talking about him this heavily linked to Manchester City if he hadn't just scored about him against them in the Champions League? I mean, he's a player that's come on the radar. That was his first Champions League goal. I mean, he's, like Pete said, he signed for Sporting this season, 7 appearances in the league, 1 goal. So with the fees that are branded about and the links to Hugo Viana, you can see that left wing, left midfield, good player. But that type of money to come into the Premier League just because he scored one Champions League goal against Manchester City, That's opened the links up. Let's see what type of season he has at Sporting and have this conversation at the end of the year, because at the moment, for me, he's not that level.
And we've spoken a lot about kind of the center backs at Manchester City starting to get up in age. John Stones being one of them, obviously one of the best center backs in the Premier League, maybe in the world. But the injury concerns, the time he misses continues to arise and bring up issues. When do Manchester City start worrying about the next crop of young defenders they need? Again, it seems like with Pep staying a year, maybe 2 more years, there'll be another couple of big signings that come in under him. Could they make a move for Castello Luqueba, potentially, Paul, or Ilya Zabarny from Bournemouth? So, some younger center backs who can kind of come in and learn at the rest of this year and step in the next couple of years under Pep.
Well, if you're writing John Stones off at 30, there's no hope for us, is there? I mean, he's only 30 years old, John Stones. I mean, he's still got a lot of football ahead of him. You look at what other players are doing, late into the 30s, mid-30s. Man City get another 5, 6 years, 7 years out of John Stones. So I don't think there's a huge rush, a huge call. You look at the players that they've got at the club. Luca Becchio, yes, top player as well, linked to Man City. But I think Zabarny's the one for me. I think he's a centre-half. I've watched him a couple of times at Bournemouth. He only signed last season from Dynamo Kiev. Very, very experienced, 22 years old. He's got mid-40 caps for the Ukraine. I like him. He reads the game so well. And he's a ball-playing centre-half as well. He can score goals. He's a threat from set plays, Zabarny. And he's a player that I've watched a couple of times. I really like what he does. Now, he's the type of player that you could see fitting into that Pep mould, alongside a John Stones, who, listen, he's still got a lot of football left to give. So you look at the defensive problems that Manchester City have had this season. Is there an opportunity there to bring something? Yeah, there is. But you're not moving John Stones on. You're bringing other younger centre-halves in alongside him who get an education, who play with him. In the same way Ruben Diaz has been there. You learn with players alongside better players. And those, if you bring in a Zabarny type player in to play alongside John Stones, yeah, you see that, you get that. But you certainly ain't moving John Stones on if you don't have to.
Bournemouth won't stand in Zabarny's way if they get a big offer. We know we've seen that in the past, that they sold Solanke to Tottenham in the summer. If Zabarny continues to impress like he is doing in the Premier League, there's talk that Tottenham and Chelsea are also monitoring the Ukraine international as well. Bournemouth will see it as a viable deal to do in the summer if a big money offer is made, because they won't be able to stand in his way if a club can offer him Champions League football and offer a huge transfer fee from him as well. So he could tick a lot of boxes for City. A young player who's only going to get better and better, and he is Premier League proven from now having this 18-month spell in the Premier League with Bournemouth.